All right. Hello, friends. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today for our Admissions Unplugged. This is the first time that I've really offered an Admissions Unplugged, so we're going to learn together. We are going to give it just a couple more minutes for folks to join the call. I can see the numbers still going up, but today we are going to go over a little bit about the UCalgary admissions process. We're going to do some mock evaluations where you're going to get to play international admissions officer or admissions officer, I should say, and then we are going to debunk some myths about the admissions process. So again, we're just going to take a couple more minutes and then we're going to jump on into it. All right. So as folks are coming into the chat here, if you do have any questions or you want to ask a question, you can pop it in the chat. You can use the Q&A function. I have an amazing team member, Sebastian, who's here to support me today. That way you can get your questions answered throughout the presentation, but I will try to hold about give or take 15 minutes at the end, where we'll have some dedicated Q&A time. And if we can't get to everyone's question, depending on participation and volume, we'll have contact information to get you sorted with whatever the case may be. But it is now 6:02. We have 40 people in the call, so we are going to jump into it. Before we start, we're going to do a territorial acknowledgement. The University of Calgary, located in the heart of southern Alberta, both acknowledges and pays tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nations, and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearpaw, and Good Stoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nations of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6, though I recognize those district names have changed. On a more personal note, I want to take a moment just to say thank you again to anyone joining the call. I'm not typically a recruiter. Um, I wear a couple different hats here at the university. Typically, I'm an admissions officer. So I'm really grateful to have this amazing opportunity to connect with everyone in the call today. So please don't hold back if you have questions, concerns, comments, throw them in the chat. But let's get started. All right. So, of course, we're all virtually gathered here in Calgary. I know a lot of students, you're going to be receiving presentations from a bunch of different institutions, whether they be in BC, Ontario, maybe even Saskatchewan, or globally. I think it's important that before we jump into anything else, we take a moment to appreciate how good we have it here in the city of Calgary, the Blue Sky City. Of course, it's called the Blue Sky City because we receive about 333 days of sunshine on average. That's more than any other major city in Canada. As someone who did do their undergraduate degree in Ontario, I will say in the winter, you are going to miss the sunshine if you leave. We also have 96 kilometers of bikeway and pathway networks throughout the city. Those do connect directly to the city of Calgary, whether you want to rollerblade, skate, bike. Our campus is very accessible that way. Calgary also has the most small offices and small businesses per capita in Canada. We also have the highest personal income per capita of Canada's major cities. You might be thinking to yourself, oh, isn't that Toronto? But when you actually break the numbers down per capita, you're going to find that Calgary tends to land on top. Now, welcome to our campus. We're not going to spend too much time talking about campus since we're all here to learn about the admissions process. But I do want to take a moment to highlight the LRT station in the top right-hand corner. Of course, University Station. That's how a lot of our students will arrive to campus. We also have the Arts Parkade down in the south, that bottom part of the map there. We have a bike cage on that main floor where you can lock your bike. Sounds a little scary, but you get a key to the bike cage and then you lock your bike within the cage. I like to think of it as like two-factor authentication for your bike. And then, of course, we have sports medicine up above beside the McEwen Student Center. In sports medicine, you might find students field testing some Nike or Adidas sneakers. And then, of course, we also have the Olympic Oval, the world-class speed skating facility built for the Winter Olympics. Now, as Canada's entrepreneurial university, we're very young. We were founded in 1966, and that is a strength that we have. We're not deeply rooted in traditions. We like to shake things up, and I think we're going to talk about a couple of those changes throughout the presentation today. UCalgary also boasts a 95% undergraduate retention rate. We're very protective of that number, which is why our admissions are set up the way that they are. And of course, we have more than 90 different startups, which is more than any other Canadian institution. I actually just saw a post by the university today. That number has now exceeded 106 startups created here at the University of Calgary. Now, let's chat a little bit about our admissions process. As you can imagine, every program here at the University of Calgary is considered competitive. We are going to base your admissions review on 5 faculty-specific subjects, and those are going to vary depending on the programs that you're applying for. We're going to use a different set of courses if you're applying for engineering than if you're applying for English or education, sociology. We have a website. If you just Google UCalgary admissions requirements, it's going to allow you to filter based on the province or curriculum you're in, your current student status, and the program you're looking to apply for. Now, we're going to do multiple reviews throughout the year, and I think this is where confusion is going to start to make its way onto the scene. If you're applying now in October and you're a grade 12 student, you're likely thinking to yourself that you've applied for early admission. And while you've applied early, you didn't just apply for early admission. You applied for early admission. You're also going to receive a standard review, and you're also going to receive a final review at the end of the academic year. Now, when we are calculating a student's average, it's going to be based on the courses that are completed and on your Ministry of Education transcript. Now, we're going to put an asterisk there. Terms and conditions do apply. It's going to look a little bit different if you're in a full linear school. So instead of taking 2 semesters, term 1, term 2, maybe you're in a year-long school where you take the same courses all year long. In that circumstance, we will use interim results. And for our International Baccalaureate or IB students, we're going to be using predicted IB results. Now, all students must also demonstrate English language proficiency. The good news is if you've been in a Canadian high school for 3 years, you've already done this. Even if you're in that 3rd year right now, grade 12, you've already met English language proficiency. If you're a newcomer to Canada, welcome, but you might have some questions about how you are going to meet that English language proficiency. It might mean we're going to take a look at your prior education from your home country. Perhaps you're in like the British GCE system as an example, and we can still waive the requirement. Otherwise, you could be asked to submit an English language test score like a TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. I'm going to have some contact information at the end of this presentation with someone named Maria who wants to help out along the way. Now, personally, when I was growing up and I thought about university admissions, I thought about essays. They sort of went hand in hand. And I think that's still kind of the case for a majority of students. But I'm happy to share that that's not the case here at the University of Calgary. There are 2 program types where you are going to be required to submit a supplemental or written component for your application. Of course, that's going to be the Bachelor's of Health Sciences programs and our social work programs. Now, remember when I said we were founded in 1966? We like to shake things up. Social work is going to be my first example of the night. This is the first year where undergraduate admissions will allow students to apply for social work directly from high school. Prior to this year, if you wanted to become a social worker, you needed 2 years of university level experience first. But for the first time, high school students, you are now eligible to apply directly to social work. Hopefully, we have some aspiring social workers in the call today. So when you're completing that supplemental component for social work, they're going to have some questions. Now, these questions are published on the website. We don't hide the ones for social work. The social work faculty like students to see them in advance. They're not going to be too tricky. It's going to be questions about what are your opinions on the social work practice? How are you currently engaging in your community? Story's a little bit different for the Bachelor of Health Sciences. Of course, this is a very research intensive program. I think there's a misconception that the Bachelor's of Health Sciences is the one-stop shop to go to med school, but that's absolutely not the intention. The Bachelor of Health Sciences program are very research intensive, so your supplemental component is probably going to ask you some questions about why do you want to apply for this program? Do you have any research experience? Do you want to start researching? What would you like to research? Now, I'm going to say those are estimated guesses on my end. We are not sent the Bachelor of Health Sciences supplemental component in advance. So I've never seen the questions. They don't publish them to try and make it fair because health sciences is so competitive with a limited number of seats. You are going to discover what those questions are once you submit your application and you start working towards that supplemental component. Now, dance and music students, you're going to be invited to our campus to complete an audition. And then for our visual studies or fine arts students, you are going to be asked to submit a portfolio. Now is the time to start working on your favorite pieces, whether it's your choreography, your music, or your actual portfolio that you plan to submit. So let's talk numbers. Estimated competitive averages. I mentioned earlier on the call today that I'm actually an admissions officer temporarily filling in this role wearing a different hat for a couple months. So believe me when I say I have confidence in these numbers, but they're estimated or educated guesses. I will say we use a very sophisticated tool to create these numbers. We're looking at years worth of historical data, trends, how many students are applying, what programs are they applying for, who's accepting our offers, and what are we expecting this year to look like. But things can change. These numbers are driven directly by the applicant pool. That is to say, all of you in the call today that submit an application. If everyone applies for, let's see here, let's pick an example. Everyone applies for the Faculty of Kinesiology, and you all have exceptional grades. That mid 80s could rise to a high 80, depending on the strength of the applicant pool. Now, there's one number on this slide that is different than the rest. This is going to be my second example of the night on how UCalgary likes to innovate, change things up, and adapt to our situations. Of course, I'm talking about the Faculty of Nursing, the average to enter the nursing lottery. I've given you a specific number on this slide. 82%. This is the only number on this slide that is not going to be subject to change. We are committed to that 82%. Now, last year, I'm sure some of the folks in the call will know that our admission average to nursing was very high. It was too high. We have a mandate from the province of Alberta to create nurses for our province. We want grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad to have a nurse when they need it. If I fall down after this and I break my arm, the first healthcare provider I'm going to see when I enter a hospital is going to be a nurse. So we have a duty at the University of Calgary to make sure we are creating nurses for the province. The Faculty of Nursing has done a lot of research, and what we have determined is that by having such a high admission average, we're not creating nurses for the province the way that we could be. Now, that's not to say our nursing students aren't successful. They are actually incredibly successful. So successful, in fact, that many of them are going to med school, they're doing their master's, their PhD, or they're leaving the country to pursue amazing global opportunities. So what we're doing this year is we're going to drop that admission average from that 90s where it was before all the way down to an 82. That means any student with an 82% average or above has the same likelihood of receiving an offer of admission. Now, there is one thing that you can do to stand out. Apply early. Our first lottery draw is going to happen sometime in November or early December. So we need to have your documents and your application on file in order to calculate your average and to put you into the draw. You want to be included in every lottery draw possible. Now, I've given you a specific number here, 82%, but you might be thinking to yourself, how are we actually going to calculate that 82%? Let's talk about it. Let's start with early reviews. Let's say you're applying to a program at the University of Calgary and you don't have any 30-level courses completed yet. We are going to be using 4 courses based on your grade 11 marks. Let's use engineering as an example this time. You've applied to engineering. You don't have any grade 11, or sorry, you don't have any grade 12 courses done yet. So we're going to be using ELA 20-1, Math 20-1, Chemistry 20, and Physics or Biology 20. We can use those two at the end there interchangeably. Now, what's important to remember is that the admission average for an early offer is going to be a little bit higher than the numbers you're seeing on this screen. As an admissions officer, if I'm giving a student an offer of admission, I want to be confident that they're going to be successful in their program and that they're going to be able to maintain that offer throughout the academic year. Now, early reviews, we mentioned 4 courses, grade 11. 85% of our offers are actually going to come out in the new year. I want you to think February, March, April. It's going to be after the first wave of your diploma exams, or for our linear students, after you submit your interim results. At that stage, for a vast majority of programs, we will shift to a 5-course review. Now, that doesn't hold true for our engineering example, which is actually why I used it as the example for early. At standard, engineering requires calculus. Doesn't necessarily, you don't have to have calculus, but we're expecting students to have calculus. So if you don't have Math 30-1, it might be a little funky to try and get Math 31 at the end of the year. This is my really convoluted way of saying you're not going to have calculus done at the end of this semester. A vast majority, I'm talking well above 90% of students, complete 30-1 Math Term 1 and 31 Math Term 2. So for engineering and engineering only, when we do a standard review, we start mixing in those 30 levels, we're still using 4 courses. So maybe you've completed English 30-1, so we're going to use that one in your evaluation. And then we're going to sub in the remaining courses at the 20 or 30 level, depending on what you've completed. So if you didn't do chemistry 30 yet, you're also taking that next term. That's okay. We're going to keep using chemistry 20. So for engineering students, you're going to get your full 5-course review at the end of the academic year when we expect students to have calculus. Now, if you're not taking calculus and you won't be completing calculus, we can still provide students with an offer of admission. We can always replace calculus with an approved course, but there's a catch. The catch is you have to have an average that is 5% higher than your peers. And you're going to be enrolled in a little bit of a different stream where you're going to get caught up on that calculus content in your first semester of university. But let's talk a more typical example. Maybe you've applied for computer science. For your early review, we did those 4 courses, 20 levels, grade 11. Now we're in the new year. You're done your first wave of diploma exams. We're doing a 5-course review. It's very similar to what we did with engineering, but we are using a full set of 5 this time. So we're going to use any 30 levels that are available, and we're going to fill in the blanks with your 20 level coursework. Now, when you apply to the University of Calgary, we are going to get your transcripts on your behalf from the Alberta Ministry of Education, and we are going to pick the courses that we use in your evaluation. So when you apply for admission, we're going to make it super easy for you to do. You're going to go through Apply Alberta. You're going to use your Alberta student number. You're going to double, triple, quadruple check that you're using the correct Alberta student number. That way I can get your transcript on your behalf. Then we're going to take a look at your transcript and we're going to say, these are the best 5 courses that meet the admission requirements. These are the ones that we're going to use. We are always going to use the combination of courses that number 1 rule, meets the admission requirements, but number 2, provides you with the most advantage. I think for a lot of students, maybe this comes into play with that 5th course, that approved option or approved course. Maybe you took Social Studies 30-1 and you scored an 80, but you took Drama 30 and you scored a 95. I now have 2 courses to pick from. Drama has a 95. It's an approved course or option, so I'm going to use that in your review because it makes you the most competitive applicant possible. So that was my crash TED Talk on how we're going to calculate an admission average. So we're going to do an example together. Okay, so this student, Lindsay, has applied to nursing. We're at the early review stage. Lindsay is in her first semester of grade 12. She has no 30 levels completed yet. Based on what we're seeing here, I wonder if we're going to be able to give Lindsay an offer of admission. So we're going to go through and we're going to pick out the courses that, as we said, rule number 1, meet the requirements. So first I'm looking for English 20-1. Now it just says English 20, so we're going to assume that was English 20-1. That was my bad. I should have wrote English 20-1. So we have a 93 for English. We're going to write that down. Next up for nursing, we are going to need math. I can see there's a Math 30-2, which if we take a look at the admission requirement webpage, we're going to find that that's actually the preferred way that we review nursing students. We prefer that you take Math 30-2. You can take Math 30-1 or 30-2, and we'll use them interchangeably, but we do have a preference for Math 20-2 or 30-2 because it's going to prepare you for the content you're learning in the nursing program. That's not to say that it's going to help you stand out in the lottery. It won't. But the faculty themselves have said, hey, you might want to take Math 30-2. So we're going to use that. We have a 75. So far we have English, 93. We have Math, that's 75. Now, of course, we're going to need biology. So we have biology with that 85 average. That's a great score. And then last up, our fourth course, we need either chemistry or science 20. I'm not seeing science 20, but I am seeing chemistry 20. So I'm going to use chemistry 20. If Lindsay also had science 20 and it was a higher score than an 80, we would use that instead, but she doesn't. So we have English, math, biology, and chemistry. We have her 4 scores. We're going to do some simple addition. So we're going to add those 4 scores together. We got that 93, 75, 85, and an 80. So 333, we're going to average it out. So we divide by 4, 83.25. So the question here, will Lindsay receive an offer of admission? If not, why? Well, she's passed the average check. She has higher than that 82% average I shared earlier. So far, it's looking really good for Lindsay. But if we're actually looking at the question here, will she receive an offer of admission? The answer is no. She's going to be entered into the lottery, and then if she's drawn from the lottery, then she might get her offer of admission. She's definitely cleared, but we can't guarantee an offer at that stage. Let's look at a different program without a lottery. Okay, so Tina has applied to engineering. We're in the standard review. That means the first wave of diploma exams are done. I wonder if anyone can remember how many courses we're going to use for a standard review specifically for Tina. If you're thinking to yourself 5 courses, you're so close. Remember, for engineering, because we can't expect you to have calculus done this early, we're going to follow up with a second 4-course review. So if we're looking at engineering, in this example, we're going to pretend the admission average is an 85. I cannot promise that is going to be the admission average. So please don't leave the call today thinking, I just need my 85. I'm going to be like Tina. I'm going to get an offer. Remember, you're going to check the widget. Okay, but we need English. We have English 30. Tina did outstanding on English 30. She has a 93. That should say 30-1. That, again, is my error. Then we need math. I'm looking for math 30-1, but she doesn't have 30-1. So we're going to go back to math 20-1 instead. We're going to fill in the gap. So we're going to take math 20-1. Tina has a 75. Next up, we are looking for chemistry. Chemistry is required. Chemistry 30, she did it. Chemistry, she has an 80. We're going to write that down on our sticky note here. Okay, and then for engineering, we need either physics or biology. So I can see there's a physics 20 grade there of an 80 and a biology 20 grade with an 85. I want to make Tina have the strongest application possible. So we're going to use biology instead because it is a higher score. Now, if Tina receives an offer of admission, that does mean she needs to attend the Summer Institute or the Biological Engineering Summer Institute to catch her up on the content she may miss in Physics 30. But if she gets Physics 30 done next term and she submits that, we'll waive that requirement for her. But for the purposes of this example, we now have English, math, chemistry, biology. We have no calculus, so we're done. I know she has some really, really outstanding scores for social, drama. We could even maybe consider using physics, but again, standard engineering review without calculus, we're doing 4 courses. So we're going to add them up. We're going to find out what Tina's average is. So we got 93 plus 75 plus 80 plus 85. We're going to divide that by 4. That doesn't make sense. We're going to double check our work just to make sure we're on the right page. She has very similar scores to her friend on the last example. 85, chemistry is an 80. Okay, that means Tina has an admission average of 83.25. So in this example, Tina would not receive an offer of admission to the Faculty of Engineering because she's not passed the average check. Now, then that brings up the question, will Tina have her application canceled? No. She's not going to have her application canceled. Tina's going to get a message in her student center that says, "Thank you so much for applying. We are going to take a look at your application again at the end of the academic year, and then we're going to give her another review." Now, the tricky part, the asterisk, or the terms of conditions that will apply to getting that final review is that I cannot guarantee that spaces will be available. I hope that there are some spaces available and that we can provide Tina with her offer. But of course, that's not something that we can guarantee. Perhaps all of our offers go out before the end of the academic year, in which case Tina may be added to a waiting list, or she might get a response saying that there's no position to be offered, which is why it's important. Grade 12 students that are in school right now, this is the term to really, really hit the ground running. I would say your first semester of grade 12 is arguably the most influential in our admissions process because you want to have that 85, like Tina was trying to get your offer as early as possible. Now, we're going to shift gears a little bit and we're going to talk about we're going to talk about advanced credit and how that's going to fit into the admissions process. So, International Baccalaureate, we're going to start there. Students who are being reviewed through the IB program, you're going to submit your predicted scores. That is going to include your EE and TOK scores. We're going to use that to understand what your admission average is. Then at the end of the year, you do outstanding, you graduate, you get your International Baccalaureate diploma. We're going to start providing you with transfer credit for those higher level courses. Your standard level or SL courses aren't eligible for university level credit, but I want to give you credit to recognize your achievement in those higher level courses. Now, AP students, if you are like me and you took your first AP course in grade 11, I want you to declare that on your application, and I want you to submit that AP test score as soon as possible. If we go back to our example here for Tina, if she had taken maybe instead of chemistry 30, maybe she took AP chemistry. She got an 80% there. That was her in-course grade, but she submits a 5 out of 5 on that AP exam. She didn't do super great on her diploma, but she crushed that AP exam. While we don't share exactly what our internal conversion rate is, what I can share is a 5 out of 5 on an AP exam is worth a high 90, which means I would use that 5 out of 5 instead of Tina's 80% in chemistry, which probably, or not probably, it would have raised her average and she would have been eligible for an offer of admission based on her AP test score being used in lieu of chemistry 30. So if you took an AP test score in grade 11, you want to send it over now so we can consider it. If you're currently in an AP course, that's okay. Lots of students take AP coursework in grade 12. We won't be able to use your AP score at the standard process because you're going to write your AP exam in May. But at the end of the academic year, I still want you to send your score over because when we do your final review or we're finalizing your offer of admission, we can do the same thing. We can pick and choose between using chemistry 30 or AP chemistry AP score. Now, there's lots of students that will ask, okay, I did AP chemistry, so I have a chemistry 30 grade, I have a chemistry 35 grade, and I have my test score. Can you use the chemistry 35 score? It's higher than both of the other components. The answer is no. We're either going to use chemistry 30 or we're going to use your AP test score. The 35 AP components for bio, chemistry, or whatever the case may be, they're worth 3 credits on your ministry transcript, which means they're not eligible to be used because we're looking for 5 credit courses. However, you scored a 5 out of 5 on your exam, which means now you're eligible for university level credit as well. That might mean that your tuition bill in your first term is a little bit lower because we've waived some of those first year courses for you, or your first year schedule is a little bit easier to integrate into, or maybe you're one of those students who really like to give themselves a challenge and you're going to start registering an upper level coursework in your first year of university because you already have the prerequisites made. Now, our audience here today is Calgary, so we are not going to talk about the General Certificate of Education advanced levels. That is definitely not a curriculum offered here in Canada. But let's talk student financial support. Did you know 35% of our students receive some sort of funding from the institution, whether that's going to be a bursary, a scholarship, or award? That's over $22 million paid from the University of Calgary to our students to fund their post-secondary level journey. We do that in three ways, friends. The first way are automatic awards. Any student who has a 95% average calculated on their five required courses at the end of the year, or their four required courses at early, or five at standard, wherever it happens, if you have a 95% average during your admissions process, we're going to give you $5,000. No questions asked, no forms submitted, no essays written from us to you. Although I should say from our president to you. It is called the President's Entrance Award. Now, terms and conditions apply to this one as well, friends. If you are provided that automatic award based on your early review on grade 11 content or the standard review, a mix of grade 12 and grade 11 together, you have to maintain that 95 to the end of the academic year to maintain your scholarship. Now, I never had a 95% average in high school, and I think I speak for a lot of students. So, what really gets me excited is the high school entrance awards. I want you to think of that as like a survey that you're going to complete. It's going to say yes, no, yes, no. Maybe you're going to input some dates on when you've been engaging in your community or completing extracurriculars. Now, there's an example I like to give for this sort of award category. If you've seen any of my presentations in a local Calgary high school, I'm so sorry you've already heard this example, but I can't help myself. We opened in 1966. Back in the 70s and 80s, parents in the chat will know you could just smoke on campus. As crazy as that sounds, you could just light up a cigarette in your lecture hall or in the atrium. We are very fond of our atrium. I want you to think of it almost like a greenhouse. It's filled with plant life, has a lot of tables where students can hang out, socialize, and study. Now, when the research started to emerge on how detrimental smoking was to your health, naturally, the University of Calgary was like, we're banning that on campus. No more smoking on our campus. All of our plants in the atrium, guess what happened? They all went through nicotine withdrawal. Every single one of them died. It was mortifying for us as a campus community. As funny as it sounds now in 2025, I'm sure back then it was not a laughing matter, but we responded. This is my third example of how the University of Calgary, a new institution, we like to do things differently. Instead of just banning smoking and then saying, okay, we're going to replot the plants, we're going to get new plants, we created a scholarship for students that don't smoke. On that awards application, you are going to see a question that says yes or no, do you smoke? Now, when I was at one of my high school visits, a very brave student asked me a question. They said, Eric, is vaping considered smoking? I think I speak for every parent and guardian in the room when I say absolutely, it counts as smoking. If you have a vape in your back pocket right now, it's sitting on your desk and you're a high school student, I want you to throw it in the garbage. That way, maybe we can give you some funding to help start something here at the University of Calgary. Now, I think a lot of folks are really interested in our prestige awards. Those are those big ticket scholarships. We don't necessarily give full rides here at the University of Calgary. Our methodology is to break those awards into smaller pieces to administer to a wider audience of students. But some of them are up to $25,000 a year, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is pretty much a full ride. Now, there's one catch here for the Prestige Awards. Your application, your written application is due to us by December 1st. It's already October 10th. We're going to blink and it's going to be Halloween. We're going to blink again and you're going to start hearing Christmas music in all of your favorite retail stores. I promise it feels like there's a lot of time between now and December 1st, but I want you to apply early to give yourself enough of a runway to complete your Prestige Award application to your satisfaction. I want you, students, to have a parent, guardian, trusted mentor, career practitioner, guidance counselor read it over for you to address syntax, spelling, grammar, and those smaller pieces. They are very competitive awards. But remember, 35% of our students receive some sort of funding. And I have a sinking suspicion that if more students engaged in the awards process, we could get that number higher. Whenever I go to a high school and I say, hey, Prestige Awards, hey, high school awards, I watch half the room glaze over. I want every parent to instill in their children this mantra when it comes to awards. The University of Calgary cannot provide you with a scholarship if you don't ask. Don't sell yourself short, friends. All of you are prestigious. I want every single person in this call to at least try to submit the Prestige Award, throw your name in the ring, and then maybe we're going to make it really difficult for the awards office to choose their winners. Okay, that was awards. We're going to talk dates. Some of these we've already been over. October 1st, that is when the application form officially launched for our domestic students. December 1st, as we just mentioned, that is your awards deadline to submit your Prestige Award. Now, if we need a letter of reference or recommendation from a volunteer coordinator, a part-time job manager, guidance counselor, teacher, whoever it is, we are going to give you until December 15th to get that document submitted. Now, before I worked here at the University of Calgary, I wrote reference letters for a lot of part-time student staff members. I'm going to give you a piece of unsolicited advice. If you were asking someone for a reference, you're going to give them at least 2 weeks, if not even a little bit more, to get your reference completed. There is nothing more stressful than having a student you really want to support come out and say, hey, I need a reference by tomorrow. It's not going to go well. So make sure you're applying early to give yourself enough time to get all of those pieces in a row. Then, of course, we're going to go into 2026. Happy New Year. We've crossed the sun again. January 1st, applications for residence will open. Now, a majority of students won't have an offer of admission at this stage because, again, 85% of them are going to come from our standard period. Again, we're thinking February, March, April. So you might be thinking, why do they open the residence application so early if no one has offers yet? The good news is you do not need an offer of admission to apply for residence. You can apply for residence as of January 1st, and if you apply early, we're going to guarantee you housing on our campus this fall. Next in the list, I'm going to say arguably, out of all the deadlines, this is one of the most important. March 1st is the deadline. This is the day the application form will close. That means this is your last chance to change your choices on your application or to submit your application or to submit your undergraduate awards application. This is the survey one, the yes/no questions, because remember, Prestige Awards were due in December. If you reach out to the admissions office on March 2nd and you say, I'm so sorry, I was camping, I was in Italy, I was in Spain, my laptop fell in the river, I'm going to say, I'm so sorry to hear that. You need to apply for fall 2027 admission. So let's not have anyone this year in that boat because we're all going to apply early. Now, for our linear students, IB students, or students who've already completed an AP test score, this next deadline applies to you, March 15th. This is when we're going to want those documents in by. Now, frankly, you're going to want to submit them earlier because we're going to have a rolling basis of admission. Offers can start in November. They're going to keep going until we have no more offers to give. So if you're waiting until March to give me your predicted scores, you might be putting yourself a little bit out of a disadvantage where if you submitted them in early January, when that checklist opens for you, we're able to review your application faster while more seats are still remaining. Okay, I promise the next deadline's more exciting. May 1st. This is going to be your deadline to accept your offer of admission and commit to the University of Calgary. This is when you really get excited. You get to start posting all over social media. I'm going to be a dino this September. Now, for students who don't have offers of admission yet, this is also the time when offers that are not confirmed will be recirculated back into the applicant pool. Can't guarantee how many there will be. Students that get UCalgary offers typically do take them. Then, of course, in early May, you're still in high school, but you're already starting to select your courses for your first year. June 30th, this is your deadline to complete all high school courses. We're never going to take a required course the summer before your start. So if you're starting this fall, September 2026, we're not taking any summer 2026 courses. They're all going to be done by June 30th. And then, of course, our final transcript deadlines, we have a kind of a range here, August 1st to 30th. It kind of depends on your circumstances. But for Alberta students, we're going to get those automatically. For IB students, we're going to get them before August 1st as well, but you're going to have to reach out to the IB office to arrange that. Whew, okay. There's one more deadline. I think that is really, really special to me as a new recruiter. This is the first time I'm going to be supporting open house in the capacity of a university recruiter. So I'm really hoping I'm going to see as many of you as possible on our campus on Saturday, October 25th. It's one thing for me to talk at you and say, we have awards. We're entrepreneurial. We opened in 1966. It's completely different for you to come to campus and experience the energy for yourself. So I encourage everyone, grades 10, 11, and 12, to come to open house. Grades 10 and 11, this is the time to start going to as many open houses as possible. Cast a wide net. That way in grade 12, you can narrow down the schools you're really, really interested in. Okay, I promised that we would have some contact information. So here we go. If you are a newcomer to Canada or you are experiencing barriers based on being in a low socioeconomic background, Maria wants to support you. Please don't feel scared to reach out. If you're thinking about going to SAIT, NAIT, Polytechnic, and then transferring to the University of Calgary, Christopher really wants to support your journey to UCalgary as well. And then if you are an Indigenous student, Holly or Alicia would love to connect with you to talk about all of the different admissions pathways that we have to support our Indigenous students here at the University of Calgary. Now, if you don't fit into any of those categories, you're going to be working primarily with me, at least for this semester. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can contact me. Calgary.recruiter@ucalgary.ca is by far the easiest way to get a hold of me. I have a personal goal that I'm going to respond to emails coming into my inbox within 5 business days, and I have the support of my manager and my team members to help me make that goal a reality. So if you need a question answered sooner rather than later, I want you to give me an email. Now, I have a phone number there, but transparently, I'm not at my desk very often. I am still traveling to schools. I'm out and about. So catching me on the phone is quite rare. So really the safest bet is to send me an email to calgary.recruiter@ucalgary.ca or scan that QR code at the bottom there and book a one-on-one meeting with us. It's going to be in person or virtual. It might not be with me. You might book with Mark or Kaylee, some of our other amazing recruiters here at the University of Calgary. But we're all very passionate about making sure our students get the answers that they need. Well, thank you for listening to me talk for the last 42 minutes straight. I'm going to give my voice a little bit of a break and I'm going to open the floor to questions. Feel free to throw them into the chat, or if you're able to unmute yourself, go ahead and we're going to address as many of them as we can. I see 6 of them have already been answered. Sebastian is hard at work. Thank you so much, Sebastian, for that. Looks like he's currently answering Elizabeth.